Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first of 4 Supporting the Travel Industry webinar series. I'm Scott Halstead, and on behalf of the Destinations Travel and Leisure team, I want to thank you for taking the time to join us today. We understand the travel industry is dealing with many issues, so our team surveyed thousands of travel professionals to see what topics are most important to discuss. The webinar series continues every Wednesday between now and June 3rd at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, covering COVID-19 related topics in marketing, sales, and consumer behavior. To see the full list and a replay of the discussions, please visit our website at thedestinationshow.com. That's thedestinationshow.com. I want to thank our partners, Austin Adventures, Jack's Facts Travel Marketing, Outdoor Writers Association of America, Travel Business Success, and Wonderful. Now, before we get started, let me just set the stage. We have 2 hosts who will be conducting a fireside chat discussing what tourism companies can do to survive and thrive during the coronavirus. All your cameras and microphones will be turned off, but we do encourage questions. So please use the chat box. It should be on your right-hand side. If it's not open yet, you can open it from the bottom to provide all of your questions, and we'll get to those questions as we go through. The format's going to be pretty simple. Our hosts are going to talk for about 40 minutes, and then we're going to open up to questions. But if you can jot down questions, we'll grab the best ones, and between us and our hosts, we'll get those answered for you. Now, let me introduce our 2 speakers, Dan Austin and Tim Warren. Dan Austin is founder and CEO of Austin Adventures and Tourism. Dan ignited his passion for adventure travel in 1976 as partner of a rafting company in the Pacific Northwest. His travels soon took him to Alaska, where he owned and operated a mid-sized construction company. Here, he gained valuable experience working out difficult logistics and long-distance problem solving. His company completed projects from the most remote Alaskan village to the military bases of Hawaii and the Azores. Our second host is Tim Warren. He is founder of Travel Business Success. For over 26 years, Tourism Tim Warren has been dedicated to helping current and future tourism stakeholders worldwide to start, grow, and prosper and exit in their business dreams. He is also the host of the Travel Business Success radio podcast and Tourism Marketing TV, and author of Double Your Tourism Bookings online programming. Now it's my pleasure to welcome to you our 2 hosts, Tourism Tim Warren and Dan Austin.
Hey, good morning, Scott. Thank you so much. Dan, you need to unmute yourself.
Thanks, Scott.
Really appreciate that. Thank you, Scott, for the intro, and thank you all for being here. I see some names out there, some friends and clients, which is fun, from all over the world, so that is great. Dan and I go back quite a ways, and we were talking about this just the other day. About 1995, we think we met, and we both had a passion for travel and tourism, and we're both involved with tour companies. And we started, we started getting together about every Saturday, I think, and chatting, or at least once a month. We were on the phone chatting, and man, we would go deep and wide, and we just have a great time talking about the business we love.
We had no idea what we were getting ourselves into.
Yes, little did we know what would unfold from that. And I got to brag a little bit on Dan, is that Dan, you've kicked ass, and you've done amazing things in this industry. You've enhanced a lot of quality of life. You and your team have won an enormous amount of awards, and we've enjoyed numerous podcasts together. So if you guys haven't heard some of our podcasts, Travel Business Success, where Dan and I are chatting and talking, I highly recommend it. But yeah, Dan, it's always a pleasure to get together with you and do something we love, and that's talk about tourism.
Thanks, Tim.
Cool. So I'm just going to do a quick overview on folks on, again, of the topics we're going to cover. Dan and I talked about, there's a lot of webinars out there right now, and we thought, what is not being spoken about, and what is forward-looking, that's both present and in the future, that really is more actionable. And Dan and his company has been doing some pretty amazing stuff. But the overall topics we're going to cover are marketing communication, when and how to start selling, operations, specifically leadership, logistics, and self-care, optimizing workflow, and marketing flow to reduce costs, to increase conversions, increase profits. And we're going to have a lengthy Q&A, and we're going to open this up, and really no question. You can ask any question you want about this business, this wild and wacky bird business that we're in. Between the two of us, Dan and I have probably been there or done that, or have got some insight about it. So we're thrilled that you all are here. And on that note, Dan, let's jump right into marketing communications as our top topic. When I spoke with you a couple weeks ago about this, I was super impressed with what you had done as this COVID thing started unfolding as your company, and reaching out to your guests and some of the results that you were having. So my first question to you is, when did you start communicating with your existing guests, and when COVID set in, and how did you communicate? What were you sharing?
Well, I think that one of the things that served us well is we actually got ahead of it, and we literally saw it coming, and knew we had to kind of all but eliminate the standard, email marketing 101, right? The standard, buy your trip to Costa Rica now, buy this, do this, look at this. So what we adopted early on was what I called the ABCs, and it was anticipate, be honest, and communicate. And so we started a really aggressive campaign, totally shifted our focus again early on from outgoing sales efforts to outgoing communication efforts, and we really made it personal. My sales team, weren't in a position to lay anybody off. We put everybody to work just doing different duties. We called every single guest. We told them we were very much aware of the situation. We're monitoring it. We became the expert. I studied more on coronavirus around the world, which it's dizzying because it changes every day, and you have to listen to 5 experts to even remotely get some idea of a position. But we took it real personal. We dropped the kind of the standard template emails, and I started sending out personal emails from me. And I was just very honest about it. My language, my talk. I'm sure I had more than a few typos in there, but literally just trying to set the stage that we were there for the long haul. We're aware of what's going on. We're totally all about working with our guests to keep them safe. And we were just honest. If we didn't know, we said we don't know. And we said, things are changing drastically. Yes, last week I told you we were going to be running Utah in April. That changed. Now we're running Utah in June. And literally took that kind of a full frontal approach. Let's just really go out of our way to over communicate and let them know that we're human, they're human, and just kind of accept the position that we're all unfortunately in right now, and we're in it together. That was the other message that I think we got across loud and clear to our customers, is that we're in this together. So I think that was the start.
Well, what I was so impressed with, Dan, I mean, I really liked your approach, and it was personal, it was proactive, and you just got on the phone and called. And I know that during this time, we're talking about March and April, and many of us were dealing with cancellations, or people were not booking, but mostly cancellations and refunds. And share with our audience how many cancellations you guys do a huge volume. You're all over the world. And how many cancellations and refunds did you have to do?
Well, it was early enough in the season that, unfortunately what we missed is we missed our peak selling season, right? Our peak selling season is February, March, and April. So literally what we had was what we had on the books prior to, January 1. And it was a great year. Was all set to be a great year. But, literally, I don't know, well over 1,000 plus customers that we literally reached out to, and not just once. We just, even before their trips were due, we started communicating with them and asking them, what are you looking for? What are you most comfortable with? And we had some guests said, early on, I'm out. I want to cancel flat out. I don't know when I'll ever travel again. Fortunately, that number was low. And we had a lot of guests that said, 60% of our guests said, we'll wait and see. Let's just wait and see. Let's see if we can travel. We'll ride it out. Another 12% rescheduled for later in 2020. And then another, I think it was 12% rescheduled for 2021. And again, that was early on. We started this kind of practice probably the first week of March in any kind of sincere effort. And we knew we were in trouble. We knew that things were definitely, shaping up around the world. So national parks, our summer season domestically is our big season. And that's what was really in question. Nobody knew at that point what the parks were going to do. And so it literally became every week it was, every day it was changing. And so you might tell a guest one thing today and then have to call them up and say, oh, Canada just closed their borders. We're not doing the Canadian Rockies trip this year. But because we had that open dialogue with them, it really worked. I've just been amazed. 99% of our guests have been absolutely awesome. Really super good, easy to work with. If they could reschedule, they did. If they couldn't, they were honest about it. We also quickly changed our cancellation policies and our deposit policies and liberalized them. I know a lot of tour operators struggled with that. We just felt it was best. We really try to put ourselves in the consumer's shoes, and it hurt a lot. But in the long run, we've had zero chargebacks. We've had, no complaints. We've had no bad reviews. We've had, literally, I think our guests appreciated the fact that we posted it on our homepage. Here's what we're doing. Here's what we're willing to do now, or what we can do. We pushed back final payments. We liberalized just about everything we possibly could do. And but then we were also in the conversations. We're honest about it. This hurts, and many of them were like, okay, let's escrow that money for next year or for later in the year, and literally tried to work with us. So it's a two-way street.
It's really impressive what you did. The bottom line, folks, what Dan achieved for his team is they avoided mass amounts of cancellations and refunds and chargebacks, which is huge. I mean, and the dude is going to hit the fan again in the world at some point in time, whether it's something like this or something else. I think the takeaway for me, and I hope for you, is be proactive, be personal, connect with your guests in a most personalized way as you can, and be honest. I think your ABCs it's such a great model, and it's helped you move forward and connect with your guests in a more authentic way. So let's talk about continuing on the communication, talking with guests now as well as prospects. What is your communication with existing customers and look like? What kind of, so we've covered the first phase. Now we're into, hey, we want to stay connected. Tell us a little bit more about what you guys are doing. You guys got this awesome program that you're doing with kids and adult virtual tours.
Yeah. Let me back up just real quick, Tim, just so I don't set the wrong stage. We're getting our asses kicked like everybody. Literally, it's nothing like I've ever dealt with before. We're just minimizing it. So literally, this is tough. But again, early on, we saw an opportunity. Try to figure out how to stay relevant. That would be the term that I would use. How do you stay relevant? Again, we're all conditioned to send out that weekly email that features 3 trips, or that weekly email that talks about, our newest trip, what people can buy. And we made the decision, literally shut it down early on, that, we're not going to do that. Because when I got those from others, I felt they're in poor taste, right? It's not going to, we just don't know right now enough to start really thinking about where next. So we had the idea that, I like to say before anybody else, which was kind of unusual for me, to do virtual adventures. And we're fortunate that my daughter, Casey, her background before, during, and after adventure travel was elementary ed, and she's a kid magnet. So instead of doing, these virtual training webinars, which we've done a lot of for travel agents and things like that, we actually created virtual adventures for kids. We knew parents, we have several staff members that have kids on their, in the family, and they were already challenged with working from home and how they were going to handle the kids and, this whole new world of virtual learning, and they needed a break. So we created this program called Virtual Adventures for Kids. Casey hosts it every week, and we're getting 1,000+ kids at those webinars every week.
Awesome.
And then we're also getting feedback from the parents that, you know, thanking us for it. And again, now the kids are talking about, it was, you know, kind of maybe a soft sell, right? We weren't selling anything. However, we were educating about how cool Yellowstone is. And so now the kids are talking about, I want to go to Yellowstone, Mom and Dad, I want to go to Yellowstone. And, you know, parents are watching it with them. So it just allowed us to stay relevant and allowed us to continue just to kind of reach out and provide services and hopefully continue to build a, you know, kind of a loyal base.
Yeah, it's
and they are a ton of work. They are, I feel sorry for Casey. She's putting in ridiculous hours to make these worthwhile. If you haven't seen them, they're all recorded on our website.
Yeah, no, it's really worth checking out. You guys are doing a great job, and the proof is in the pudding to get that kind of response. And you guys are rolling out a series of these. I think it's brilliant, and I think it's important for us as tourism professionals to remember at the end of the day, we are in the quality of life business. I don't care if you're a destination, a travel agent, a tour operator, lodge, you name it. When we do our job well, we enhance quality of life. And I think that what Dan is doing is something my brother told me about that I liked, is the concept of keeping the dream alive. Keeping the anticipation, because how many here are dying to get out and do something with, you know, to recreate, to do something fun, you know, all of us. Guess what? So is our marketplace, big time. The rebound is going to be strong. And so, you know, we need to be relevant, as Dad said, and we need to keep the dream alive. So these virtual calls, you know, and as Dan says, are really being relevant, but we're not really selling. So that Dan and I were talking about how do we go from being relevant, keeping the dream alive, engaging our market, and shift to selling. So what have you guys started laying out the framework of kind of when and how you're going to start selling? And what does that look like?
Good, great question. Yes, we have. Last week was our first outgoing consumer-facing, let's call it a sales email, where we basically wasn't a hard sell. We just listed that our 2021 dates are up on the website. Tim, as you just pointed out, you know, one of the things that research shows is that people committing to a trip is a huge part of that kind of endorphin happiness kind of pattern, right? So literally, you know, using that kind of language, that how important it is to have something to look forward to. So we kind of hit on that a little bit, but it's going to be soft. It's going to be slow. We're no 2-3 emails a week. We're continuing with the virtual adventures, but we're also starting to turn our thoughts to, you know, what's next. And as the country, we're just taking our cues by the country, right? It seems like the country's starting to open up and people are starting to talk travel. I can look at our web stats and see that people are coming back to the website. I can see that, you know, we're getting more interest. So I'm letting consumers drive that train. I'm letting them tell me when they're ready to start really getting serious. Kind of related to that, and in the interest of staying relevant, you know, we've created some new product that literally, you know, kind of fits this market a little bit better. It's nothing new. It's all stuff that we were currently working on. We just kind of pushed it to the forefront and promoted it a little bit more. PR and press is another way to stay relevant, and we've been pretty fortunate to be able to do that. So yeah, I'm letting consumers dictate when they're ready to start being sold. We actually sold 3 trips yesterday, so we were pretty excited.
Yes. Gotta love it. Gotta love it. No, it's true. People are jumping at the bit to go do something, and especially if you got kids. And I can imagine you're opening a can of worms over there. All these kids going, "I want to go to Yellowstone. I want to go to Yellowstone." Good work, Dan. That's great. So I think that it really doesn't matter what we think or what we want as operators. It's always the market dictates what they want, and our job is to figure out what that is and to give it to them, as Dan said, when they are ready. I know that we're down in Baja, we're definitely getting inquiries, and and people are looking to the fall, and that's when we kick in with our whale sharks. And so that's kind of the content we're putting out is around the fall. activities, no selling, just kind of pictures and videos, and the dog sitting lonely on the beach saying, the dog is waiting for you to come back. Anyway, let's shift into operation and leadership and logistics, because this can be a really opportune time for us. I know that many of us are kind of vacillate between highly motivated and using the time to frozen, depressed, and not really sure what to do. And so I really get it. I've been there myself. I've talked to many operators, and these are weird times. But it is an opportunity to make a shift. And one of the things that you and I talked about, Dan, was this concept of what you call it, getting off the X, and we talked about being more agile. John, can you talk a little bit about that and what you guys have been doing specifically to keep the momentum going within your team?
Sure. Got to be honest. Got to give credit due. I stole that term, getting off the X, from a great motivational speaker that ex-Navy SEAL that literally talked about it in real life circumstances, what getting off the X meant to him. And it literally was when you're under fire and the enemy's found you and they're shooting at you and you're in one spot, you got to move. And literally that really motivated me to think about it that way. I mean, I've always kind of felt like I do my best work under pressure. And I think we all do, right? Because we get complacent when things are too easy. So literally, for us, it was, we got to keep moving. We got to literally keep moving. We cannot sit around and feel sorry for ourselves. We got to keep thinking about all the different aspects of the business, right down from, how are we going to market? What are we going to cancel? What are we going to run? How are we going to manage inventory? To, okay, guess what? Someday we're going to have to actually run a tour. And so what are we going to do to actually run a tour? And another thing that I think that we did well, and we did a little bit differently than many, is we embraced our guides. They're in just as hard times as we are, if not more so. This is, now they should be all working, but a couple months ago, they were getting ready for what they thought was their season. So we communicated with them every day, every week as well. We did virtual cocktail parties every Friday afternoon, and literally, got their input. What are they seeing? What are they feeling? And then when it came time to start thinking about actually executing trips, we empowered them to help us figure out what would that mean to them. What does that mean? How do they see, do they see 15 people in a 15-passenger van ever again, or at least not this year? No. What do they think about sanitation? What do they think about all these different aspects that we now have, the new reality that we all have to deal with? So we created kind of a focus group of tour guides that helped us create what is our action plan. And then we studied the airlines, we studied the hotel industry, we studied all the different people affected by this, and put together a comprehensive plan. And this is how, when it's time, when we're ready, our first trip is June 14th. All things go well, and so we have to be ready to actually implement the plan. So we've used this time well. I think, Tim, you asked me, how do you keep your team motivated, right? And we're all working remote now. We're one of those tour operators that actually has an office, and we like working together, but now we're all remote. So we're doing weekly team meetings via Zoom, which is getting a little old, but it still brings us together. And as an owner, or as the one person that everybody's looking to, I've kind of put my emotions aside and be upbeat, optimistic, and positive, and reassuring, and kind of build that team morale. And that's been tough. There's been days where, you're looking at all these Zoom faces, and you're looking at some pretty sullen faces, and you're like, okay, guys. And we're fortunate to have a partnership with the brand Life is Good. One of the best things I ever did was create a partnership with Bert and John Jacobs of Life is Good. And so we really stole right out of their playbook. Every meeting is started with something they do, and it's tell me something good. before we ever start the meeting, tell me something good. And it was interesting to go around the room and hear the, well, I got my, toilet fixed. Okay, great. I got, we're remodeling our bathroom or whatever it was, but at least it helped kind of set the stage where we're not going to sit around and moan and groan for an hour. We're actually going to talk about what we need to get done. And then is there opportunity to address things that we have not done or been wanting to do? So we actually use it as house cleaning. What else can we do? What do we were right in the middle of going paperless when all of this hit. Okay, so let's stay on that. Let's make sure we continue. We have a little more time now. Let's do it right. I can think of a dozen things that we actually had been putting off that now we said, okay, we've got a little more time now. Let's do that kind of market analysis. Let's do that customer journey. Let's do that. Some of these things that literally, when it's just absolutely crazy, you cannot get done. We're actually accomplishing some of that now. So we're using the time well to hopefully, like we all hope, to be better off down the road and survive. And then I think the other thing, one point Tim I'd make, the other thing that I think we did, and it caught fire, is all of us, the whole team, were dealing with different customers for different reasons. And what we started doing is sharing those positive experiences. And literally, then it got to where, well, your guest said this, here, my guest said this, and whether it be, kudos from Casey's webinars or whatever positive messaging was floating out there in the email and universe, we just shared it. We got to people that actually was, getting 10 of those a day shared around, and that helped a lot, I think.
I love it. Sometimes when I'm feeling down, and I recommend this to any of you, and you've got good TripAdvisor reviews, go read them. Go remember why we do what we do. I think it will perk us up. Real quick before we get into operational workflow and some of that trimming and pruning and optimizing you just mentioned, this, because I think this is a very real thing. We can be upbeat and we can focus on the positive, and I'm all for that. But when you notice that someone is just feeling a little down, which is totally normal and acceptable and real now, what are you doing to make sure that lack of enthusiasm is not getting out to the marketplace?
Great question.
For your staff.
It is absolutely a challenge. I talk to our sales team often, and I tell them, do not call a guest if you're down. It's that obvious, right? It's like literally wait till you're in the right frame of mind. If you're having a bad day, then have somebody else make that call. Or if you just had a bad experience with a guest, we've had a few that were livid about us canceling their trip. Go for a walk. Take a walk. Go, get away for a little bit. Push back from your desk. Again, I think fortunately it's been kind of I don't want to say few and far between, but it's been the exception, not the rule. But acknowledging, like you just did, Tim, was perfect. Acknowledging that it's reality, right? The studies are saying that how depression right now is at an all-time high. We all feel it, right? Yesterday I had a bad day. Yesterday. Today I woke up and I said, today's going to be a good day. I'm going to do my best. So far, no one's ruined it yet. So please don't ruin it. So.
Yeah, it's, at times like this, we all can do is laugh or cry. But so it's, I was excited and looking forward to this because every time you and I get together to talk about the biz, it's always fun. It's always engaging. And there's something to dig into. Let's talk about the optimizing workflow. And you mentioned earlier that operationally and as far as product development, that you ramped up a new trip development and brought that online. You started talking a little bit about market analysis and the customer journey. Is there some specifics that you felt were really important or you're excited about getting on from first for operations? Second, then we'll get staffing and some specific marketing that I want to talk about.
Okay, so don't let me forget marketing because that was probably our big win that we'll talk about in a minute.
Okay.
But, really just because we all had to, because it's interesting. We went totally online internally about 6 months ago, right? We were behind the curve. We just were always busy. If you came to our office, you'd see paper everywhere, paper files, paper, you know, a central filing cabinet system, both for digital and for paper. And then about 6 months ago, we decided we really are going to go paperless. So we started that, you know, with Google Drive and, you know, everything in the cloud. So when it came time to work remote, and everybody, you know, 12 offices now around we already had a head start, but then we refined that. We all had to learn how to find things in the cloud. We all had to learn how to Zoom meetings, you know, gosh, I honestly don't know if I ever did a Zoom meeting 2 months ago, right? I mean, literally now we've been hosting 3 and 4 a day. So I think literally embracing technology and trying to stay organized. We still communicate via email a lot. The team set up Slack. We were having trouble when we first went remote, knowing who was on, who was you know, walking the dog, who was at their desk, who was, you know, you just can't see it. So the team created a Slack account where they just now, you know, ping in and out when they're, you know, going to the bathroom, stepping away for a break, whatever they're doing, so that we always know kind of who's at their desk. That helped a lot. So really, I think it is just kind of embracing technology was what we did from a kind of just a management standpoint.
A lot of the top entrepreneurs, I don't care what industry you're in, they talk about this opportunity to re-engineer your business. And that for most of us, we're so busy in the day-to-day ops mode that we're planning the next product or this or that, we don't get a chance to step back and really take a real close look at your systems. I think it's a really important thing to do, because, you know, if you save money, you're going to make more profit. If you save time, you're usually going to make more money. You save money and time, your staff's happier, you're happier. And then on the marketing side, which we're going to jump into, it can make a huge difference on really looking very closely at the customer journey, you know, as Dan said it, or I call it the marketing funnel. You know, how many people are coming into and seeing your information, whether it's the virtual tours that Dan's doing, your information on Facebook, your emails, any pay-per-click advertising, whatever it is. How many people are coming into and engaging with your content, and how many of those people are actively becoming prospects, and how many are actually becoming customers? These are all key metrics that you can track, you can quantify, and when you do this, it's going to put you way ahead of the game. It's not just about traffic, folks. Traffic without conversion is a waste of money and time. So Dan, tell us about your big win in marketing recently. You've always been a superstar.
Well, one of the biggest challenges we've had for the last 20 years is growing our agent business, right? We've been averaging 10% bookings from the travel agent community. And we know many of our big competitors are in the 50, 60, 70%. And we just haven't been able to crack that code. And I was personally working with an agent a couple of weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago now. And it dawned on me that this agent originally booked this guest a year ago, back in August, and the guest was scheduled to travel in May. They then moved the guest to June, and then the guest then moved to 2021. So I realized in talking with this agent that they had, you know, I don't know how many hours working with this guest to try and get him on the right trip. And it just dawned on me that agents don't get paid their commission until after that guest travels. So while we're, you know, feeling the pain right now, big time, the agent community is feeling it even worse, because literally they will not get paid until that guest travels. And with nobody traveling, that means no paychecks. And so I came up with the idea of paying half their commission at time of booking. Mm. And everybody's like, oh my God, I can't believe you can do that. Well, actually, you know, the commissions are not ridiculous, and they're covered under our deposit schedule. So yes, it's taking, you know, it's money I was going to pay anyways. We're going to pay it. We're going to pay it after they travel. And that allowed us to crack the code. I've probably done well over 200 agent trainings in the last couple of weeks. So literally that allowed us to partner, to express that we really do see the agent community as our partners. It's not just talk. And so that was a good win. We really actually, PR picked it up, media picked it up, the agents picked it up, was sincere. Again, going back to that whole communication thing, this wasn't, a half-baked gimmick to get more agent bookings. It actually was sincere. We saw they were not getting a paycheck. And so it helped immensely, and I think it's going to help us long term. The whole idea of all of this is, A, survive, and B, grow and prosper and come out with more market share than maybe you had going in.
That's awesome. I'm really impressed with that. And out of the crap can come good stuff, and opportunities to really look and re-engineer what you're up to. And I would say that what you did, Dan, is really you changed the nature of the funnel, because the relationship funnel you have with travel agents is even more important. What we're engaging with our customers and our brand, and how much they trust us as a relevant expert source that's going to be around and have a great time, is even more important, 10 times more important with the travel trade, because they're referring their customers. And so you've really upped the game and probably changed the whole industry standard, Dan. Seriously,
Well,
what you did.
It's kind of fun, because now I've seen others follow suit. It was the same with the virtual adventures. I mean, we launched it, and I mean, there is something to be said to be first to market, right? Literally, and so that goes back to kind of being agile and reacting, and not. I know an awful lot of tour operators that spent the first month with their, kind of head in their hands, going, "Oh my God, this is going to kill me." Well, it's going to kill us too. But you know what? I'm not going down without a fight. And so, literally, this was a way. But I actually have seen now a few other tour operators get on the bandwagon, and I think it was time. I actually had to apologize. I was talking to an agent early this morning, and I had to apologize that I didn't think of this sooner. That literally I did not see it. I missed it. And I am shocked that the agent community wasn't, beating on this drum earlier, because they sure should have been.
Yeah, it really is a partnership. And I see a comment from Susan Kelly. It says, Dan Austin, this crisis has shown us agents, the operators who have our backs and who are on top of my list. So I mean, it's really about relationships, folks, and whether it's you're dealing with the customers, the would-be customers, or those kids.
Right.
And developing that trust, being relevant. And before we go into the Q&A, is there any other marketing stuff that you've done as far as specifically looking at the customer journey? Anything you've done on refining your key performance indicators, on your cost of acquisition of a client, or your conversion rate, or any of that stuff yet? Well,
I think that it's, again, we're in tough times, guys. And so literally I've had to look at our overhead. And I've had to look, I know tour operators for decades have been arguing back and forth to whether or not a print catalog is still relevant, right? And so now, literally, for the first time in 25 years, I am looking at not printing a catalog. That would break my heart, because that's one of my projects, and it's one of my fun projects, but it's also ridiculously expensive. And is it necessary, right? So I think that's the other part of this, is in tough times, you have a tendency to, in good times, you have a tendency to just go with the flow, and you're hitting on all your numbers, your budgets are good, you're spending money, you might have a few staff more than you need. But in tough times, really making sure you know where your money's going, and making sure that there's an ROI on every penny spent, and that you're not spending. I mean, literally, I spent 3 hours in a budget meeting yesterday. And we're literally going over, what's this $5.99 for? What do we need this for? And you find, all these, accounts that you had for different services that you haven't used. And you just literally, find, automatic charges coming out of your credit cards for something you ordered once and signed up for some newsletter or something like that. So I think that's the other part of this, that we will definitely come out stronger because we were complacent, and we were, now it's going to be tough times ahead. So literally making sure we know exactly where our budget is at all times, and make sure that the staff knows, where we're at. We've always been an open book company, more so now than ever. So yeah, I think that would that's tied to every aspect of the business: sales, marketing, operations, just literally knowing where your dollars are going.
It's critical, and God, thank God for technology. I mean, there's tracking online and things that we never had before, and so really as part of it. And just quick shout out for 2 weeks from now, I'm doing another training with the same group, specifically about looking at your website and looking specifically at how can you make your website sell more? How can you generate more leads and bookings from your website? Because tourism will come back in one shape or form. We don't know exactly when or how, but we know the demand's there. So getting the maximum out of your investment in your number one marketing tool, which is usually a website, is a key thing. So on that note, Dan, we do have some questions here, and you ready to play a truth or dare on Q&A?
I stump the chump. So let's.
All right, stump the chump. And the winner gets a free bass trip with Mr. Austin since the season has opened up. Okay, here we go. Here's a first question from Maggie from Florida. She was actually one of my course members and a friend. It says, we are completely shut down doing food tours. We are dependent on local restaurants. When will they open? Who will reopen? How many folks in them at one time? Obviously, we're months from reopening. What would be your top 3 suggestions for us to do first when we have those answers? Dan?
Wow, that's a lot to unpack there. Obviously, none of us know. We are starting to see pockets opening up around the country, at the 25% occupancy. I know I have a lot of friends that are restaurateurs, and they tell me the margins just won't sustain that. So it's still going to be tough. But I think that what was the last part of that question one more time, Tim?
No problem. It's relevant to these restaurants then being dependent on restaurants as part of their food tours. It says when they do open up and when they do have parameters of how they're opening up, what are your top 3 suggestions for them as a food tour operator to do first to kind of reopen and re-engage with their marketplace? So they're closed down now. I know this company.
Yeah, well, what we're seeing a lot of, obviously, is the to-go, and that would be a great start, is to make sure you stay relevant by coming up with some sort of amazing to-go package. I have a friend that's in a similar business, and they did something really neat. They created gift bag boxes from the local region. That they were actually I'm trying to remember, I think they were out of Nashville, and they created gift boxes with barbecue sauces and recipes and all that. And actually they did it to create a little revenue, and it exploded. So they literally were able to stay relevant and create a little revenue by creating kind of I guess you call it a virtual, restaurant visit. But I think that the past that, it's going to be tough. Other than, again, embracing the restaurants as your partner, and even if you have to go the to-go route, right? That doesn't mean the chef can't come out and explain what he did and how he did it and make something unique out of it. Make it an experience. I mean, everything we do and everything most of us do, it's all about the experience. So you got to we for years have done picnics in the parks, national parks. And instead of eating in the restaurants, we'll do picnics. And they become legendary because the guides embrace the fact that, a picnic doesn't have to be cold cuts. They can go hog-ass wild and create a picnic that literally blows, people's minds. And then that's what they remember. So I think that the answer to that, the long story is the answer to that would be to continue to try and make it an experience. Come up with some way, some gimmick to make however you get started again, make that part of the experience.
That's good. And I would add to that, for those of us who've got bigger trips or multi-days, there's no reason why we can't start the experience in advance and send some of that gift box in advance and start giving them something physical in their hand to kind of keep the anticipation, keep the excitement going. So now we get to make it up. And I love your idea, Dan, about, hey, get the chef to come out. And, this is the opportunity to make something interesting. So if you got questions, folks, put them in the chat box. We're going to move on to the next question. This is from Joe. I can't pronounce your last name, Staiano. Thank you, Tim and Dan. You mentioned chomping at the bit and pent-up demand. I agree. How do we in the industry guard/plan against over-visitation, oversaturation once things open up?
I mean, Joe, Joe, that's a great question. I mean, literally, you know, as we all see the world, the physical world is taking a breather, right? There, you know, you're seeing dolphins in the canals and all kinds of crazy stuff again. The national parks, there's probably never going to be a time like this in our history to visit the national parks without the crowds. We were on the phone with the superintendent of Yellowstone a couple days ago, and, you know, no tour buses this year, like none. And literally no tour buses. The international travel scene is going to obviously be at an all-time low. So this year, I don't think that's not going to be a worry. It's actually going to be a great time to travel if you can do it. Long term, it'd be great if they learned from this, right? In other words, if they took and said, okay, this is where, look at Yellowstone with 4 million visitors last year, and look at Yellowstone with 2 million visitors this year. And how can we do that? How can we manage that? You know, whether it be through shuttles or, I'm sorry, any of my friends that have tour bus businesses, maybe it's eliminating the size of tour buses or minimizing the size of tour buses. You know, again, the big cruise ships, you know, we all know, you know, they're kind of the antichrist of tourism when it comes to, you know, taking over a small port and not really embracing sustainable tourism. Ships are going to start maybe shrinking in size, fewer of them. So I think there's going to be a little bit of it just kind of by nature. As far as how can we ensure it, boy, Joe, your guess is as good as mine. I think just learning and seeing what works this year might actually motivate us to dig a little deeper and try a little harder in the future.
I think the market is also going to help us determine, because no matter how much they open up, the market is ultimately going to determine at what level they're interested in showing up and doing this. And I think, you know, just the social distancing will help determine that. Hey, we got a question to you, Dan, from Josh Cohen. Dan, you mentioned you're starting and running your first trip June 14th. I'm assuming it's domestic. When do you see yourself starting to ramp international trips back up? How are you navigating the international situation?
So great question. God, these are all tough. They should have brought an easier crowd, Tim. There's a great website out there. I apologize, I don't have the link right in front of me, but there's a great website out there that has, you know, 150 countries on it and what their daily, what's going on daily, but literally just monitoring it, talking to our partners in country, our guys in country. And to be honest with you, we're starting to look at that now. You know, I saw a great article about Costa Rica being one of the first international destinations to open up. And we have a pretty strong Costa Rica program. So we, you know, immediately reached out to our partners in Costa Rica to ask what they're seeing and how can we slowly start introducing. Great question. This morning, I asked my, what's left of my marketing team to create an infographic of the top 10 international trips that we anticipate opening, in what order. Iceland, for example, and Costa Rica. So we're starting New Zealand. Well, New Zealand's probably not going to open up to foreign tourists, but it's really going to come down again, as we've said over and over again, to the market. And there's just too many unknowns at this point still. I mean, a lot of countries are opening up and then closing back again, right? We're seeing that. So we're fortunate that we have, domestic is about 65%, 70% of what we do. And so that helps a ton. But internationally, we have guides or partners on the ground, and we're literally talking to them every day to find out, you know, what kind of consensus is. But we will start today. We will start looking at where are those strongholds. Today when I saw the article on Costa Rica and I read it, I was thinking, you know, okay, is it time to start promoting a Costa Rica Christmas trip? We have one. We haven't even thought about it for a couple of months, but maybe it's time to start thinking about that. So still early. I think we're really early at the kind of those first few steps. There's kind of 4 different steps to a situation like this. And the first one is fear, and we're kind of out of the fear step. The next one is kind of understanding. I think we're starting to get into the next one, understanding, and the next is going to be planning and action. And so I think we're starting to get a feel for that planning and action phase.
Yeah, I think definitely this is going to unfold in phases, and maybe you're looking at a little further out than you would normally on some of your trip planning. I think the Christmas Costa Rica is a great analogy. We got a few more questions, Dan. We got 8 minutes, so we want to honor your time all, and so we're going to be pretty laser here. Again, thank you, Susan, for the comment and what Dan and his company are doing for travel agents. This is from Kathy Wood. Dan and Tim, what changes do you think tour operators will have to make? You mentioned number of people in a van, sanitation changes, etc. How do we help people feel comfortable about travel again, especially older travelers who have time and money, but may not be risk takers?
Great question. I'm kind of dealing with it every day. A couple of different things. One, on our scheduled departures, we're navigating towards and trying to use more properties with private access. In other words, cabins or at least outside access versus hotels with a common area. I think that's going to be big going forward. We're doing a lot more, we're seeing a lot more interest, and we've created some programs for homestays. In other words, literally we rent a mountaintop executive style home, and that's home base. It's just for them. I see that market growing exponentially. I've talked to a few people even late last night that they're already seeing it. So if there's any businesses that are kind of flourishing right now, it is the rental agencies that handle that market. They're doing quite well. So we're going to see that. You know, we've already started to see, even prior to this, kind of the parks limiting size of groups on trails. I think we'll continue to see that kind of ratchet down 10 or less. Another product that we're launching in 2021 is, we've always been, you know, we're old. We've been around a long time. We've always done the 2 guides and 1 van model. Next year, we're going to go to a 1 guide, 6 guests model for select trips, just to really give it that, you know, private, exclusive kind of vibe. You know, again, there's so many unknowns. I mean, today we ordered Austin Adventures logoed masks. You know, we don't know what we're going to do with them yet. We don't know if who's going to wear them or why or when, but we got them. So we're still dealing with a lot of the unknowns. And again, I think that's, you know, do your best to anticipate and then just kind of react accordingly. But, you know, have a plan A, B, C, and D in place.
Hold one of those masks for me. I want one. That would be cool. That would be a collector's item. And when we're old farts sitting around in rocking chairs drinking cold beers, we can be wearing our masks. Remember when?
Right.
That'll be fun. So we got a call. We got a good question from G. Elman. How do you see the markets in the Caribbean, specifically U.S. territories?
You know, I think that better than some. I think that we all agree, I think, that the closer to home, the better, right? So, you know, I see this as a huge opportunity for the Caribbean. I see it as a huge opportunity for Mexico. I think, you know, the Central America country, I think that's going to be, it's going to come back in phases. And again, I have no crystal ball. I don't know this. People are always going to travel. I envision, you know, like Tim said earlier, a domestic bounce. I think we're seeing it already. We feel there'll be a big increase. People are always going to travel. We've seen it already. We just booked a couple of people the other day that were planning on going to China this summer, and they're going to Yellowstone instead. So I think domestically is going to be first. And then I think just literally, you know, as the crow flies, closer the better. One flight, one connection. You know, if anything that can be done in one connection is going to be key. So anything that can be drive to is going to be real key. So I think that's it. I got to give a shout out to the airlines. I've been pretty impressed with what they're doing of late. They really are setting the bar for how to get people traveling again. I know there's some horror stories out there, but they're really, I think they're trying, and I think that's going to be key, because we all know without the airlines, we're out of business. We need them to get our guests.
Here's a good question, Dan, that I've been toiling with myself, and I've talked with his clients about this, building on Kathy's question about mitigating client exposure and company liability. When we decide to run again, is there any specific suggestions, ideas, or what are you guys doing on liability release forms, ways to sanitize vans, tents, equipment, etc.? Yeah. Good question.
Again, I think yesterday, we finally finished our protocol policies, and we're sending every guest a pre-trip directive with suggestions, literally that says, obviously the obvious, for 2 weeks prior, 3 weeks prior to your trip, minimize your contacts to, family and close associates only. If you don't feel well, don't come, on and on and on. Just literally, here's the obvious, pulled from the CDC or pulled from, again, using the airlines. When you're traveling, do this. What to expect before your trip, or what we expect of you before your trip, what to expect during your travels, what to expect on the trip. And we laid that all out for our guests and are sharing that with them tomorrow, literally. And then, we've had a lawyer look at our liability release, and we've said, I think it's clear that, we can't guarantee you're traveling. I mean, I hate to say it quite this way, but you're traveling at your own risk. And I think if you do all these steps and you listen, we've done our part and you do your part, we're all gonna be fine. Literally, I mean, I think that's the bottom line. And so we're making sure that we've taken steps. We're sanitizing the van, doing just, again, like the airlines, sanitizing the vans every night. We've got, everybody's getting personal hand sanitizer. We're giving the masks. We're giving, everything we can possibly think of. We're even, unfortunately, a lot of the things that we normally would do, we might have to take a few steps back this year. We're really big on sustainability, so we don't use paper products. I'm sorry, but you're probably going to see some styrofoam, takeouts this year. And we're going to have to, disposable knives and forks. We're going to have to take a kind of a break for a little bit on that. But again, I think it's just being proactive and laying it all out.
Yeah, and reaching out to your customers and to let them know it's the just like we're engaging with them before they even become customers, to let them know what our protocols, and let them know that their safety is our number one focus, and here's what we're gonna do. And so I like what you're doing, Dan. We got 2 or 3 more questions.
We did have to tell them no hugging, right?
Oh, yeah.
We're notorious for hugging as tour operators and travelers. We had to say no hugging.
Yeah, no, it's a brave new world. Hey, so a couple more quick questions, and we'll see if we wrap this thing up in a couple minutes, Dan. Susan Kelly asks, my clients are asking me not to send printed copies of Virtuoso Life anymore because they want to lessen their paper trail. They want digital copies instead. Good idea to not print another catalog. As nice as they are, they eventually end up in the recycling bin. This shutdown has really shown us that we can do things more digitally. So yeah, that's where we're at. And as you say, it's going to save some money, but unfortunately, Dan, you may not be able to do your catalog in the way you did it before.
Maybe I'll just do the covering for my wall or something. I don't know.
There you go. There you go. Well, a couple more quick questions. We've got something from Representative Rosetta of the Florida Restaurant and Lodging Association. Says, I can tell you that in-state and drive markets will be the first to come back. So I would suggest working with local destinations to create a packaging. We agree totally on that, Rosetta. From Karen Vega, we run a scuba operation in Puerto Rico and are required to have professional liability insurance. I am asking our provider, is there any thought of a payment plan instead of a pay in full fee in June, since income is nil? We probably won't have tourists until maybe the winter, but I'm told that we still need this insurance, even though we do not have any clients. Do agents have liability insurance and this situation, a full payment fee? Any thoughts about this? We only work with individuals and small families since we started 37 years ago.
Absolutely negotiate. We did. And literally, I think that's one of the insurance industry is one of the ones that has actually been pretty forgiving. We were in the same boat. Our insurance is well over $100,000 a year. And we literally we have vehicles that are sitting, we have, so we went back. They were actually very kind. They let us, they actually reduced our amounts based on current. So your amounts are based on projections. They actually revised those and then backdated them to where we actually got some money back. And then they applied that towards next year. But, what I tell my team is, and my accountants and everybody is right now, this brings out the best and the worst in people. Fortunately, it brings out the best in most. And a lot of our vendors have been awesome. We work, for example, I'll just throw a shameless plug out there for HubSpot. We work with HubSpot. It's very expensive. And they gave us a 90% break for 3 months. 90%. That was phenomenal, right? And so ask and negotiate.
Yeah, and just to wrap up here, Jared Sternberg reiterates what you and I know to be true and what you shared about negotiate. You know, this is a time for us to be flexible, and we're all in this together. So I think we need to wrap this up. Scott, I just want to put out a quick plug for come back, folks, in 2 weeks. I'll be doing a dedicated webinar specifically about how you can generate more leads and more bookings from your #1 marketing tool, your website.
Yeah, thanks.
So that, on that note, Dan, thank you, sir. It's been a pleasure as always.
All right, before everybody,
and I'll let you guys know. I mean, if there's a lot of questions, I see there's still a lot of questions coming in. Can't guarantee I'll get to them all, and I can't guarantee I'll get to them right away. Kind of deal with information or email overload. But if you email me a question, if there's anything I can do to help, we are all in this together, literally. And so happy to make myself available anytime I can, anyway. Please reach out, Dan@austinadventures.com. Again, can't guarantee it'll be right away. We are absolutely slammed, but I'll do my best.
And same goes for me too. Thank you, Dan. Reach out to me, folks, and if you listen to Travel Business Success podcast, that's going to be my whole focus, and always has been, is to put out relevant, helpful information to help you deal with issues as well as accelerate the success of your business.
Great. All right. Thanks, Dan and Torres and Tim. We appreciate your time today. Great questions, everyone. Reminder, this webinar series continues every Wednesday between now and June 3rd at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. To see the topics and presenters and rewatch this presentation, please visit our website at thedestinationshow.com. Next week, Lauren Metter and Lisa Goldberg will discuss COVID-19 social media tips for the travel industry. So we'll all see you there. Thank you very, very much, everyone. Have a great day.